Hi, welcome to the tutorial Setting up Accounting Information for Joint Venture Management. The objectives of this tutorial are to understand distributable accounts, set up distributable accounts, understand automatic accounting instructions for joint venture management, set up AAIs for revenue, capital cost, and expense account ranges, set up cutback AAIs, set up overhead AIs, set up AIs for cash calls. Many types of transactions are processed by the managing partner of a joint venture. They pay bills, receive revenue, and track the assets and liabilities associated with the joint venture. Each partner is very interested in knowing not only how the joint venture is doing as a whole, but also what their share represents. They are also responsible for paying their share of the cost and expect to receive their share of the revenue. To accomplish this, the transaction amounts are distributed to the partners based upon the division of interest. To ensure that only those accounts the partners have determined should be distributed, part of the joint venture setup is to identify those accounts as distributable. You use the joint venture distributable accounts program to mark accounts as distributable. Now, let's understand the AIs that are required for joint venture management. AIs are rules that define the relationships between your day-to-day accounting functions and your chart of accounts. After you have identified the accounts that are included in the joint venture, you must set up AIs to identify revenue account ranges, expense account ranges, and capital cost account ranges for joint venture management. The system uses these AIs to determine which accounts are for revenue, expense, and capital cost, and designates the account type for each distributable transaction for later processing. If the account type is revenue, the system pays the partner for the transaction. If the account type is expense or capital cost, the system bills the partner. You use codes JVR01 to JVR99 to create the revenue account ranges, JVE01 to JVE99 to create the expense account ranges, and JVC01 to JVC99 to create the capital cost account ranges. Now, let's set up the AIs. Access the Automatic Accounting Instructions program P0012. To set up the AI for the beginning revenue range, complete the item number field with the value JVR01 and complete the rest of the fields in the header. When you define a range, you specify the object account and subsidiary values only. In the account code section, select the business unit as not used. Enter the object account and select the required option. You can select the subsidiary as optional. Enter beginning revenue in the first field on the account use description section. Similarly, set up the AI for the ending revenue range. For example, JVR02 in this case. These are the revenue AIs that you have set up. Similarly, you must set up the beginning and ending AIs for the joint venture expense account range, JVE01 to JVNN, and for the joint venture capital cost range by following the same process, JVC01 to JVCNN. After you have set up the AIs for the transactions, you will also need to set up the cutback AIs for the cutback accounts. The system uses cutback accounts to create offset entries in the account ledger table when you create invoices, vouchers, and journal entries to bill and pay the partners for their share of cost and revenue. The cutback AIs are JVC BE for expense cutback, JVC-BR for revenue cutback, and JVC-BC for the capital cost cutback. Access the automatic accounting instructions program. Set up the AAI JVC-BE for the expense cutback account. You enter cutback account for expenses as the account use description. The system uses this cutback account to create the balancing entry for invoices and journal entries. Similarly, you must set up the JVC BR AAI for the revenue cutback account and JVC BC AAI for the capital cost cutback account. The revenue cutback account will be used to create the balancing entry for vouchers and journal entries, and the capital cost cutback account will be used to create the balancing entry for invoices and journal entries. You must also set up the AIs for overhead. The system uses these AIs when processing the overhead amounts to create journal entries to distribute to the partners. The overhead AIs are JVOHE for overhead expense and JVOHO for overhead offset. Set up the AI JVOHE for the overhead expense account and also the AI JVOHO for the overhead offset account. These are the joint venture overhead AIs that you have set up. You must also set up the AIs for processing cash calls if you are using cash calls to manage the cash flow for the expenses associated with your joint venture. There are three AIs for cash calls, namely the JVC XXX for partner contributions, the JVJ XXX for journal entry offset, and the JVA XXX for the agreement default charge. The XXX on the AAI definition represents the joint venture GL offset code that you specify in the joint venture master program P09J30. The GL offset code can be used to define a different account for each joint venture. Set up the AI JVC XXX. This AI defines the account that holds the current balance of partner contributions. The system uses this account in the transactions for cash calls. Next, set up the AI JVJ XXX. When you create a journal entry to close and refund a cash call, the system uses the account that you defined in this AI to create the offset entry. Also set up the AI JVAXXX for the agreement default charge account. An agreement default charge is the amount that a joint venture partner must pay for backing out of the joint venture. When you create a journal entry or a voucher to close and refund a cash call, the system uses the account that you define in this AI to create the credit entry for the agreement default charge. These are the AIs that you have set up for cash calls. To learn more about how to set up distributable accounts and the AIs for joint venture management, visit the set of task-based tutorials, setting up accounts in the learning path, creating and managing joint ventures in JD Edwards Enterprise One. You can access the learning path from learnjd.com. Thanks for watching.